Hey you guys, I hope you guys are doing well. This week we're going to get into a viewer question. One of you guys commented down below on one of my boundaries videos and said, look, I need to know when am I supposed to actually set a boundary and when do I need to just let something go? Like, how do I know when I should be doing this? First off, boundaries are extremely important to know how to do. So if you don't know how to do, I suggest you go down below and click on any one of my boundaries videos. There's a whole playlist on boundaries to help you learn how to really do this well. I also have a free guide that I'll link down below to kind of give you the 1, 2, 3 step on boundaries. Let's just say that you are starting to practice this and you're getting really good at it. You might have a person in your life who is just really difficult and it seems like you're almost enforcing boundaries every other day with this person. And that's what we don't want, because then this becomes something that is just draining on you and it's not changing this person or the outcome of the situation. When you set a boundary, basically what you're saying is that you respect yourself enough to say that your behavior or what you're doing is not good and I matter, and I'm going to start communicating what I will and will not tolerate with you. And whether it is just stating the boundary or having to enforce it, those are two totally different steps that sometimes require a lot of training and a lot of work, especially if you're dealing with the same person over and over again, and they are very difficult and very controlling and like to push back on you, and they're used to a certain type of person, you, and if in the past you were flexible and bendable, or if you just, every time they said something that you didn't like, you just yelled and screamed and got angry or got defensive, then they know what to do to get a rise out of you. Not every toxic or unhealthy person consciously knows that this is what they're doing, that they're doing these things to get a rise out of you. Not every person is a taker and is a horrible person. Just people get into patterns by you. Whatever you basically tolerate or don't tolerate, you essentially are teaching a person how you want to be treated. You start to learn whether or not someone is really toxic or good for you. It also helps you to build your own self-confidence, because it takes a really strong, confident person to be able to go toe-to-toe with a really dominant type of personality. Most people don't know how they want to be treated. Most people don't know what they think and how they feel. So if you're very attuned to yourself and you can then articulate that to other people, that's a skill that most people don't have. So right there, you already look more attractive. You are already more healthy and confident. And for the right person, that is a really attractive quality that they want in a friend or a partner. Now, for unfortunately, majority of people out there who are not the healthiest, this is something that they're not going to always appreciate in you. But like I said, it still helps you, because then you get to determine who this person is and whether or not they should be in your life and how healthy they actually are. Because any person that hears your boundaries, that is healthy, will respect them. Anyone who is a taker and is just out for their own agenda is going to get defensive. Let's start with kind of the basics here. When should you actually set a boundary? If your physical or emotional well-being is at risk in any way, shape, or form, then absolutely you need to set a boundary. Now, your physical well-being, whether it's at risk or not, is a little easier to spot sometimes than the emotional well-being. So physical harm, or when you're in a situation where you don't feel safe, where you feel like you're being physically threatened or intimidated in that way, absolutely, this is when we set a boundary. Emotional manipulation is a little bit different to spot. If someone's toying with your emotions, if they're using these kind of manipulative tactics on you and you're not aware of it, then unfortunately, you won't be able to set a boundary. That's why it's so important to learn about these things. I did make a video also on manipulation. I've done a ton of videos on manipulation and what it looks like. Definitely watch them and go learn about that material. That way you can know when you should actually state a boundary and when you need to just let something go. So these things that we're talking about are when these things happen, you absolutely need to set a boundary. Emotional manipulation really has to do with things like control and gaslighting, guilt tripping, giving you a little shame, playing these kind of games with you. So when you can spot that, then you know, yes, you're not going to take the bait, you're going to enforce your boundaries. Sometimes you're enforcing your boundaries is not a physical thing, it's just sometimes even a verbal thing where you can tell someone, hey, look, I don't appreciate this, and Most people, definitely not someone who's narcissistic, but there are some people that they might get a little defensive, but they do kind of see where you're coming from, and they can be able to hear what you have to say and say, okay, I get it. I guess I was trying to guilt you into doing something for me, and they'll back off. Someone who's narcissistic and really, really toxic and a complete taker is not going to see that whatsoever. They're just going to deflect and deny. If someone is pushing you to do something that you don't want to do, boundary, boom. Something that you don't want to do could be something going against like your principles or your standards, your values, just the things that are really important to you. So this is really kind of like the guilt trip. Obviously, you can use things like manipulation and gaslighting also to conform and kind of hook a person in to get them to change, to let those kind of principles go, those boundaries go, those core values go. If you feel uneasy or anxious around a person, it's so important to understand why you feel this way. I think understanding sometimes the stories that we tell ourselves, but also trying to have a conversation with someone who is probably not narcissistic and completely not okay with having adult communication like this, but someone where you can have a conversation with them and try to understand why they did what they did, why they said what they said, your interpretation of it, what they meant by it. And that when that kind of communication starts happening, you can see whether or not a person is open and receptive and has empathy for you to understand why you could possibly feel the way you do. I always tell people, if anything else, listen to your intuition. You'll know in your gut when something has been violated, a boundary has been violated, and you're feeling uncomfortable and you know you need to communicate, versus when you communicating is actually going to completely exhaust you and it's just not worth your time because you know this person is not going to change. And the boundary then becomes you and you disengaging and you learning how to let it go, versus the boundary being with this person and trying to control and change this person. Those are two very different things. Your ego should not be in the middle of your boundaries. So a boundary is for you. It is not for your ego to feel better because now you've controlled another person. So sometimes when it's a minor thing, when it's a one-time thing, okay, we can let it go. But obviously if it's the same thing that's happening over and over again, you have to be able to look at the situation and the person and see whether or not this person should be in your life, quite frankly. I don't think people want to hear that at times because they can't fathom not having this person in their life, or they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation of having to break up with an old friend or having the discussion with a sister or a cousin or whoever about the fact that they don't want them in their life. And it's not a black and white thing. You don't have to completely just shut the light off, but there is a little like moving back that probably needs to happen in order to protect yourself. Not every small thing that comes up do you need to tackle. So try to find the balance between doing things out of your comfort zone. Like sometimes you unfortunately have to have those uncomfortable conversations, and getting comfortable being uncomfortable and practicing those things and going toe to toe with a difficult personality and learning how to kind of hold on to yourself when you're in those conversations with that person, versus this just isn't worth my time and nothing's going to change. There's a balance there, because not every situation should you just be letting it go, and not every situation do you need to be tackling every little thing that comes up. Definitely, if the issue that's happening does not directly impact you, it is not really your responsibility to kind of chime in. You obviously can, but if you're maybe standing up for someone else, or if you do feel really passionate about something, and yes, it maybe didn't have a direct hit on you, by all means, like have that conversation and state that boundary. But for the most part, if it doesn't have to do with you, it is important to learn how to protect your own energy. That is really someone else's responsibility to address how they feel with that person and not always you. Consider letting it go at that point, because now you would probably either be coming from two spaces, either your own codependency or your ego. When the relationship isn't really that important, now I don't mean if we're talking about a cousin, a sister, an aunt, a friend, we're not just talking about a casual coworker that we see in the coffee room. We're talking about someone that is obviously in our life, and we would love for the situation to be different. But if you accept that, if you understand who a person is and what they're capable of doing, and if you accept that the relationship is never going to be what it is that you would like it to be, you'll learn how to let some things go and not hold on to the hope that this person could possibly change. When that happens, every little thing that this person does, you don't feel a need to kind of pounce on it because you're not looking for anything to change. You're only concerned when something has gone too far. Again, that gut, that intuition is saying, okay, it's time to speak up. Now this has gone too far. Now I do need to say something. So not every situation do you need to tackle, but you obviously have to learn the dance of letting something go and be able to have uncomfortable conversations with people. And those conversations don't include that person changing. Sometimes it's you disengaging. Sometimes it's you not over-explaining yourself. Sometimes it's you not trying to prove that your business is legit, or that you are a good friend, or that you didn't mean anything by this, or whatever your situation is. But there comes a point where you don't have to over explain so much. And when you're doing that, you're usually doing it because you either want this person to see you in a different way, or you want the situation to change because you haven't accepted the situation for what it is. And that's hard to do. That's not an easy thing. So please, when I make these videos, understand that these are not easy things to do, especially if you have an idea of who a person is in your life or who they should be in your life, your expectation that you have. It's hard sometimes to accept that they're not capable. And it's even harder sometimes for you to start disengaging from a family, from a person, because they don't know what's going on in your head, and you're not going to obviously sit this person down and say, hey, look, just so you know, I think you're actually really toxic and I'm just going to start disengaging from you. You have to slowly start pushing, like going back a little bit, just to be able to protect your energy. And sometimes people can spot that and they don't like it and they don't know what you're doing, and they might give you grief for it. And other times they won't even notice and they won't even care. With boundaries, you always want to learn how to be firm, but be calm. You want to be friendly and confident, and no attitude, no aggression, because what you're just stating is your boundary. They don't need to like it. They don't need to agree with it. This is just how you feel. This is just what you're going to do. Probably the hardest thing with boundaries is going to be consistency. So the consistency either with the other person or with yourself. Are you going to start practicing when you hear maybe family members talking and they're toxic and they're just starting to drain you? Are you going to start practicing detaching from that and letting that go, and that has nothing to do with you, and start creating your own bubble? Or are you going to get enmeshed in it? That's the consistency for you. The consistency for the other person is you kind of constantly getting on them that this is not okay, that this is not going to happen, and you standing up for yourself in a healthy way, which does not mean going toe to toe and starting an argument or getting this person to agree with you, or not think that you're the narcissist or that you're the toxic person or that you're unhealthy. Let people think what they want to think about you. Not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is going to see your point. Not everyone is awoke. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope it helped you to start understanding the difference between when you should set a boundary and when you should just let it go. Really, this is all about you and you starting to practice, like listening to that intuition on when something is actually a problem and when just let crazy stay over there by himself playing with his marbles in the corner. You know what I mean? So I hope this video helped you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share me with anyone who you think might benefit from this channel. You don't have to be going through really crazy stuff to work on yourself and watch self-development videos. So if you are going through something really hard, my heart goes out to you. I hope any content that I put out there has helped you during this transition. And if you're just looking to kind of get some insight and work on yourself, I'm glad you're here. Please subscribe and see you guys in my next video. Take care.